So it seems as though we have leaks for a brand new Fire Emblem game. And there's one thing in particular that really stood out to me that I think has the potential to dictate the direction of this franchise going forward. Now, if you don't want anything spoiled before this game is officially revealed, then consider this a spoiler warning. Now with that out of the way, let's get into it. So I'll start by giving my thoughts on the image leak for the supposed main character for this game. And here she is. And yeah, I really just don't like this design that much. There's just too much going on with her. I don't like how half her hair's blue and the other half's red, and why is she wearing a cape when her hair is longer than the cape? But I'll reserve my final judgment until we actually get a trailer and see if this is real or not. But I honestly thought this was a joke at first. I didn't think this would be an actual design for a character from Fire Emblem. Hopefully if it is real, it looks better in motion, but as of right now, I'm not a fan of this design. And while yes, there are more image leaks, I don't feel like they're really worth going over. One of them just shows the design for two knights, who look like they could believably be from a Fire Emblem game. And we also see a support screen and a menu showing all the characters that can be supported by one of the knights. However, you don't really get a good image of any of these characters, just their portraits. But now let's move on to the leak that caught my interest, that being the lists leaked by Emily Rogers, and I'll just go through them in the order that they're listed here. So the first point was that the upcoming Fire Emblem is a new game and not a remake. And I think this is surprising since a lot of people figured that a remake would have been next in the series. Seeing as the last one came out in 2017, it's about time for a new remake, I think. However, it also makes sense for a new game to come out around now, since it has been 3 years since Three Houses released. The next point is that this game was a collaboration between Intelligent Systems, Koei Tecmo, and Gust. Koei Tecmo is returning after having previously helped with Three Houses. However, Gust is a new player here, and I don't know much about the studio, just that they're known for their Atelier series. But that's about all I really know about Gust. Although having a third studio working on this project could help explain why it's coming out so soon. The leak also stated that Gust heavily assisted with the visuals and graphics, and that the graphics of this game are an improvement over Three Houses, which this really is no surprise. Especially looking at the 3DS games, it's clear to tell that each game got progressively better in terms of graphics as they went on. And it's just sort of natural that as developers become accustomed to the hardware, that they have an easier time optimizing games for it. And with the Switch being 5 years old now, it's no surprise that the Fire Emblem team would be able to improve on the graphics. This post also claims that this game was originally intended as an anniversary game to celebrate Fire Emblem's 30th anniversary, and it does make sense that they'd want a new game out for the 30th anniversary of the series, and the 30th anniversary really did feel lackluster, with the only release being an official translation for the first Fire Emblem game, which got delisted after a few months. However, it also says that this game has been finished for over a year, which I find it kind of hard to believe that it has been finished for over a year. Three Houses didn't release until 2019, so if it has been finished for over a year, that only would have given them about 2 years to work on the game, or it would have had to be in development alongside Three Houses. And I also don't get why they wouldn't have just released it sometime last year if it was ready then, and they could have at least revealed it for the 30th anniversary and then released it the next year. I just find it hard to believe that they've had an entire game finished for over a year now, and they haven't even started to market it. Moving on, it mentions that the main character has strange red and blue hair, and that his mother is a dragon. Now this seemed like a strange statement at first, but then we did get the image leak, which seemed to confirm this. However, here the leak mentions that the main character is male, whereas in the image leak, they were female. So if this does turn out to be true, I think it's likely that this character will be the avatar for this game, similar to Byleth, Robin, or Corrin, although I feel like they'll be most like Byleth, where you just pick the gender and are unable to change anything else about the character, as opposed to Robin and Corrin, where you could change their appearance. And as for this character being related to a dragon, hopefully this is executed better than Corrin, since using Corrin's dragon form was pretty useless. Although after seeing the image leak of the character, I'm afraid that their dragon form will just be split down the middle, half blue, half red, like their hair is. But we just have to wait and see how this turns out, if it's true. And finally, this last part is what I think is the most interesting part about the leak, that being that there's a new emblems gimmick, which allows players to summon past Fire Emblem characters for their team. Now at first, I didn't really like this idea at all. I thought it seemed too fanservice-y and that Fire Emblem games don't really need to do this. I thought at best, maybe this would be just needless fan service, and at worst, these old characters would end up taking away the spotlight from any new characters introduced. And while it would make sense for an anniversary title to feature all the past main characters in one game, it still isn't something that I would really want to see in a mainline Fire Emblem game. Sure, it's fine for spin-offs like the Warriors games or the mobile games. I just have a hard time imagining how the story could be cohesive when every past main character is involved with it in a way that would make sense. However, the more that I thought about this gimmick, the more that I came to realize that this could be the most important aspect of the game if it turns out to be true, and that this gimmick could likely determine the entire future of the Fire Emblem series. Now what leads me to believe this is that in Three Houses, during the loading screens, it would show you the most popular characters selected for that month. And while this just seems like harmless fun to show who the most popular characters are in the game, it also shows that Intelligent Systems has been tracking which units are used the most, and that they know which characters are the most and least popular when it comes to Three Houses. Now taking that into account, I think that something similar will be done in this game, where Intelligent Systems will be tracking which past characters are summoned the most, and if these past characters available to summon are the main lords from previous games, it would give Intelligent Systems a great idea of which characters are the most popular, and help them to determine which games they should remake next based off of the popularity of the lords. Now it could be argued that they could just use Fire Emblem Heroes to do this. However, I don't quite think that the popularity of the characters in this game is a great way of determining which games deserve to be remade next, and that comes down to the fact that Heroes is heavily influenced by recency bias. I mean, just look at characters like Alm and Celica, where no one really knew who they were or cared about them before their remake came out, and then suddenly after their remake gets released, they're winning the popularity contests for the year. So it's clear that a character's inclusion in the mainline games helps influence their popularity in Heroes. And it also doesn't help that the more popular characters in Heroes tend to have the better stats and skills, whereas lesser known characters usually aren't as good, resulting in it to be more beneficial to use the more popular characters as opposed to the character who may be your favorite. And so I think having a new mainline game which features all the previous protagonists from the series, in a game where it's equally viable to use any one of them, would be a great way of determining which are the most popular, and then Intelligent Systems could use that information to inform their decision about which game to remake next, especially since I think we're in a position where every Fire Emblem game that's come out before Three Houses could have a reasonable argument as to why it needs to be remade. And I think they've come to the realization that remaking these games chronologically may not be the best decision to go by, considering only the first 3 games have been remade, and then you look at a character like Roy, who is one of the most popular characters in the entire franchise, and then realizing that if we kept at a rate of about 1 remake every 3 years, it would still be about another decade before we get Roy's game localized and remade. So I think it makes a lot of sense for Intelligent Systems to have past characters be summonable, as it would allow them to gauge which are the most popular, and which games they should focus on remaking first, based on the popularity of how much each lord is summoned. And if this does turn out to be true, I think it would be smart to take a page from Three Houses' book, with how popular the time skip designs turned out from that game, and have all the previous heroes be about 5 or so years older when they're summoned in this new game. It could help give some insight into how these characters have evolved since we last saw them at the end of their games. And just imagine if the version of Hector that you could summon was from Binding Blade. Or who knows, maybe they'll just go the route of Awakening, where the past characters are just spirits summoned from cards that don't really interact with the main cast and are just there as optional fan service. But at the end of the day, we won't really know what the case is until we actually get a trailer for this new game. And for all we know, all of this could be made up anyways. And that about wraps up my thoughts on these leaks regarding the new Fire Emblem game. But what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, thanks for watching.